In this video, we'll show you the proper way to tighten spokes and true a motorcycle wheel. We're going to be truing this wheel that we just barely laced with the new Tusk Impact rim and a new Tusk replacement spoke kit. Keep in mind that an older rim with older spokes is most likely going to require a little more work to get it trued properly, but by using the same techniques and processes shown in this video, you should be able to get the wheel where you want it. We're going to need a few tools to help us tighten these spokes and true this wheel properly. We'll be using a Tusk Truing Stand along with the Tusk spoke wrench set to tighten the spokes and true the wheel. We'll also be using a Tusk spoke torque wrench to make sure all of our spokes get torqued to spec. There is also an option to use a dial gauge to help you when truing the wheel. This can help you be more precise when truing, and it's something that you would use more when you're truing a street bike wheel. Dirt bike and off-road wheels are going to have bigger tolerances, and using a dial gauge isn't always going to be necessary. So now we're going to set the wheel up onto our truing stand. Slide the axle through the wheel. After that comes the cone and cylinder spacers. You want to tighten the cone spacer set screw when the spacer is sitting firmly against the wheel bearing. Once that's in place, tighten the cylinder spacer against the edge to keep the wheel from shifting horizontally. At this point, you can see that all the spokes are still pretty loose. We're going to grab our spoke wrench and begin tightening each of the spokes. So we're going to start at the valve stem hole and work our way all the way around the circumference of the wheel, tightening each nipple a quarter turn. We'll continue this pattern until the nipples begin to seat, and you can feel when they seat down into the rim. Make sure you're tightening all of them evenly. Doing this is going to make truing the wheel easier. Now you can see we're getting back to the point where we started. It may take a few times going around the rim until all the nipples start to seat. But once they do, we're going to give the wheel a quick spin to check the runout we're starting with. As you can see, this wheel has a little bit of lateral runout, which is basically your side-to-side movement, but it doesn't have much radial runout, which is your up and down movement, or how round the rim is. So at this point, we've snugged all the spokes up, making sure each of them is seated. Now we can begin truing the wheel. We're going to set our pointer. You want to set the pointer as close to the wheel as you can get it. So now we're going to give the wheel a good spin, and you want to find a happy medium in the wheel as far as distance from the pointer tip goes. If it gets too close to the pointer, the way to fix that is by tightening the spokes on the opposite side. Tightening them is going to pull the rim away from the pointer, so we'll give 3 of those spokes a quarter turn each to straighten up the wheel a little bit. It's the same thing for the other side. If you find a spot that gets a little too far away from the pointer, you want to pull it closer. To do that, you tighten the spokes on the side of the pointer. The severity, length, and amount of runout in the rim is going to determine the number of spokes you tighten or loosen, and by how much. Usually it's just 3 spokes, but sometimes more is required. Most dirt bikes and off-road bikes will have a lateral and radial runout service limit of about 2 millimeters. So we'll continue this step until we get pretty close to that. Once we've got most all the lateral runout out of the wheel, we can continue to true the wheel and tighten the spokes. We're going to switch spoke wrenches and start using our Tusk spoke torque wrench. And because most all the lateral runout has been removed, we want to continue to tighten the spokes evenly to avoid bringing any of that back. To do that, you want to pick a reference point on the rim. We'll just use the valve stem hole again. So start there, and the first spoke will tighten a quarter turn. From there, we'll skip 2 spokes and tighten every 4th spoke. And we're going to continue that pattern all the way around the wheel, tightening every 4th spoke a quarter turn. It's important that whenever you're tightening spokes, you're only tightening each spoke a quarter turn at a time. After you get the wheel trued, tightening one spoke more than the others could start to pull the wheel out of true, messing up any work that you've already done. That's why we tighten every 4th spoke, because that alternates the side that it's pulling from and keeps the tension even on the rim. So you just want to keep that in mind. Once you get back to where we started, move from the first spoke to the second spoke, and continue with the same pattern, skipping 2 spokes and tightening every 4th spoke a quarter turn. We're going to do this all the way around the rim. And once we get back again, we're going to skip to the 3rd spoke, continue that pattern all the way around the wheel.
And then after we're done with that group of spokes, we will have tightened all the spokes on the wheel.
Go ahead and spin the rim again to make sure we're still sitting pretty good with our lateral runout. And it still looks good, so the next step is to check the radial runout. So position the pointer underneath the rim, and we're looking for low or high spots in the rim. This is also referred to as a hop because that's what it looks like. When you do find a low spot in the rim, the way to fix this is tighten all the spokes above it, so every spoke instead of every other one like we did when we were fixing the lateral runout. Doing this is going to pull the rim inward or towards the hub and therefore raise the bottom of it. And it's the opposite for high spots. You may need to slightly loosen all the spokes above it to allow the rim to come down a little bit. So continue this process until you've got the radial runout less than 2 millimeters. After that, we're going to go back to our spoke tightening sequence to finish torquing the spokes. Start back at the valve stem hole and then start on the first spoke and tighten every 4 spoke a quarter turn. Continue this pattern until you've tightened all the spokes evenly and every spoke is torqued to spec. It may take a couple rounds to get the spokes torqued to spec, so keep that in mind. But it's important to make sure the spokes are being tightened evenly to avoid messing up the runout of the wheel. So once the torque wrench starts clicking, just keep going around until it clicks on all the spokes. And that's when you'll know all the spokes are tightened evenly. Now that all the spokes have been tightened to spec, go back through and check your runout again. You may want to make a few minor adjustments, and it's okay if you have to tighten a few spokes a little more. It's better to have them tighter than looser. Just don't go too tight because spokes that are too tight are more likely to break. If you wanted to go even further, this is when you'd use the dial gauge. It isn't a necessary tool, but it will show you exactly where and how much runout you have in your rim. It's important to keep in mind that dirt bike or off-road rims do not have the same manufacturing tolerances as street bike rims do. So in other words, you could spend a lot of time truing a dirt bike wheel and still not be able to get it perfect, especially if you're truing a used rim. Just take your time and get it as close as you can. If you find the wheel is too far bent or out of true, it may be easier and a lot faster to just go ahead and lace up a new rim. And for that, you can refer to our wheel lacing video. So that's all there is to truing a motorcycle wheel. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-336-5437. Rocky Mountain ATV MC carries all the parts and tools you need to completely rebuild and true your motorcycle wheels. Check out our website for a complete list of OEM and aftermarket parts and accessories for your machine. Thanks for watching.